Hey, DriveTime, welcome back. Hey, normally about this time is where I'd start introducing our guest and telling you what they're going to bring to the table. But for those of you who have been following along with us, you know we've been doing this for a little over a year now, which means we have some great material built up. And for those of you who haven't been with us since the beginning, you've missed out on some really impactful stories and just some really profound testimonies. So what we want to do is every once in a while, we want to go back and we want to share those with you. This isn't really a best of, but just some ones that, kind of spoke to us. And we want to share them with you again. And even if you did see them the first time, they're just that good. So sit back and get ready for Drive Time Rewind.
Drive Time, welcome back. Today we have a very cool opportunity to listen to just an amazing communicator. I've had the opportunity to get to know Joshua through friends, and even got to hear him through the voice of my son as he had an opportunity to pour into my son during a difficult time for him. And I'm thankful for him, and I'm thankful for him coming on today. So I had seen one of your videos recently about communication, and it was probably one of the best analogies I've ever heard about communication styles. And we're actually going to put a link to your Facebook video so that, if anybody who wants to see it can see it in its entirety. But Joshua, if you would you just kind of give us that analogy and hopefully unpack it a little bit so that we can continue to learn how to communicate with each other a little bit better.
All right, Dave, I greatly appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate you inviting me on, and also appreciate you taking time to listen to the video and create this platform. So the idea basically of the two different contrasting communication styles is, on the one hand, the analogy that I came up with was dodgeball versus catch. And the reason that I believe it was a fitting analogy is because if we look at the essential elements that it requires to play the game of dodgeball, they are the exact same as they are to play the game of catch, meaning at the base level, it only requires two people and one ball to play the game of dodgeball. I mean, you can have, 100 people on one side, 100 on the other. You can have as many balls as you want. But I mean, to get the game started, to get the game going, it only requires two people and one ball. Catch requires the exact same thing. It doesn't even necessarily require a glove. You can play football catch or whatever. So the essential elements are the exact same. But when we look into the objectives of the game, the nature of the game, the spirit of the game, we realize that they're diametrically opposed. They're completely different. And so you got the same exact elements, but they're being used to achieve a different outcome. And also, consequently, they're having a different impact on us. And so when we look at the game of dodgeball, we realize that immediately the nature of the game is competitive. The objective of the game is most likely to use our skills, our talents, our resources to pit them against our opponent in such a way that we're going to defeat them. Our objective is to one-up the opponent. Our objective is to get the upper hand on the opponent. And on the contrary, on the defensive end, our objective is not necessarily to try to receive what the opponent's throwing, but to deflect. That's the goal in dodgeball, is to deflect. I mean, I know some people play that if you're able to catch it, then you can get your person back in out from the side or whatever. But if there's two people playing, there's no need to try to catch the ball. Your objective is to deflect, right? And so the individual with the greater skill set, the stronger arm, the more agility normally prevails. It's a win-lose scenario. Somebody has to lose. Somebody wins, but it's at the cost of somebody, taking a loss. The game of catch, although it requires the same exact essential elements, two people, one ball, the nature of the game is different. It's connective because the objective is different. My objective, Dave, is not to throw the ball in such a way that I try to pelt you or leave a bruise, or that you cannot catch it or receive it or deflect it. My objective is to take into consideration, your skill level, your agility level, your assets, and say, okay, how can I pitch this in such a way that you can receive it? I want you to receive it. And on the other hand, your objective is to receive it, not to use your skills or your ability to elude or to deflect, but to, even if you have to go a little to the right, a little to the left in order to receive it, your objective is to apply yourself to receiving what I'm giving you. And so what happens is, the nature of the games are different. But in communication, I realized that a lot of times effective communication, I was taking a class and ended up facilitating a class that, and one of our mottos was that the goal of effective communication is to reach an understanding and not necessarily an agreement, right? And so what happens is in communication, a lot of times if we disagree, we just kind of abandon the idea of reaching an understanding or putting ourselves in the other person's shoes and saying, okay, let me see how I can understand. If I disagree, I immediately begin to deflect. And one of the phenomena that I noticed, Dave, is even if we're in a conversation, let's look at current events for instance. Let's look at the racial tension and so on and so forth. What's going on? You have two different sides presenting different arguments. And in my personal opinion, what I've noticed is that there are far more individuals on both sides that are playing dodgeball and that are dodgeball communicators as opposed to catch communicating. And what I mean is on each have their arguments and they're not trying to hear the other side. They're not open to open dialogue. And what happens is when one side just continues to try to cram their agenda or their ideologies or their beliefs down the other side clams up. Picture dodgeball again. If we're playing dodgeball and I'm stronger or I'm bigger or I'm faster, or if you got my number in dodgeball, Dave, and every time we play, you just pelt me and I can never hit you back. Eventually, I'm gonna get tired of playing, and the game's gonna end. And if we want a continuation of the game, there has to be a connectivity. There has to be a give and take. There has to, we have to assess our levels, and we have to say, okay, I'm willing to listen to the other side. I'm willing to hear your opinion. It applies not just to the racial tension, but in marriage and anywhere where there are relationships, we have to value the relationship over the transaction. I'm sure you probably heard it said that a lot of times you can win an argument and lose a friend. That being said, when we're playing catch, and especially when we're dealing with something, I used an analogy one time. I was giving this dodgeball versus catch illustration in the juvenile detention center, and I pulled out my iPhone, and one of the kids that told me he was a good receiver across the room, I threw him my iPhone. And he caught it, and everybody was like, "Whoa, why would you do that? Like that's crazy. That phone's expensive. It's fragile. You're taking a chance of breaking it." But I did that to kind of underscore the reality of we see the value of the iPhone. We know it's valuable. We understand that if it's fragile, and if it drops the wrong way, if it's mishandled, it can be destroyed, right? I think that we neglect to realize that our words often carry way more importance and way more value and significance and are far more powerful than an iPhone. And yet we sling them around uselessly or aimlessly, without regard for what kind of damage they may do. And what happens is like you look on the news and you see some of the most brilliant minds that have the strongest arguments on the subjects of what's going on, and you read the heading, and it's so-and-so destroys so-and-so in the debate, and so-and-so gets destroyed in the debate. And what happens is that's because they're playing dodgeball. And as opposed to saying two individuals, it doesn't say so-and-so was edified in a debate, or so-and-so edified so-and-so, or enlightened so-and-so, or changed so-and-so's perspective. It's because we both have come into the conversation playing dodgeball with diametrically opposing views, and we're not willing to give an inch. Nobody's willing to move. We're both deflecting. We're both assessing our skill levels and our differences, our cultural differences, our educational differences, our socioeconomic differences, and we're seeing how we can leverage those against our opponent to try to one-up our opponent. And what happens is the other side doesn't want to lose, tired of losing, pride comes into play, and we reach a stalemate. It's kind of like the Dead Sea. The reason the Dead Sea is dead and nothing can exist or live is because there's no flow, there's no outflow. And it's stagnant. And that's what happened. That's what's happening right now. There's a breakdown in communication because everybody wants to play dodgeball. And people are tired of losing, Dave. People are tired of getting hit. People are tired of, I've heard some of the most beautiful arguments on both sides. Like I've heard people, whether it be scripture, whether it be statistics, data that present compelling arguments that to any sound, reasonable mind would compel you to stop and say, okay, well, let me at least go research this. Let me think about it. But in the heat of the moment, when we're playing dodgeball with topics as serious as racial tension and everything that's going on right now in this world, we're still playing dodgeball. As fragile as the circumstances and the situations and people's hearts are right now, as fragile as the country is right now, we're still hurling words around, ruthlessly. We're still deflecting. We're still not willing to say, hey, let's play catch. Let's stop. We need a win-win situation. There's a school of thought. It's called non-zero plus, which is creating a scenario where nobody has to lose. And the way it's going right now is that we're all losing. Nobody's winning, and we're all losing. We're playing dodgeball. Everybody's getting hurt. Everybody's hurling insults. Everybody's throwing epithets. Everybody's blaming the other side. Everybody's deflecting, and nobody's saying, hey, you know what? You have a really valid point. If I can stop, if I can, pause the madness and separate myself from the rat race, if I can quiet the white noise and say, hey, let's play a game of catch. If you're playing the game of dodgeball and you put a toddler against a major league player, the major league player is going to emerge victorious every single time. And undoubtedly do harm to the toddler in the game of dodgeball because of the skill set, because of the differences. In the game of catch, the same Major League Baseball player can play with have a connective game of catch in the front yard with a toddler because he can get on one leg and he can throw it underhand if need be and pitch it. He can assess the toddler's skill level and pitch it in a way that he knows he's capable of receiving it. And if the toddler doesn't have the best accuracy or the best control over his arm and he throws a little wide right, that Major League Baseball can move a little bit to catch it to keep the game going. And we got to be willing to, there has to be a give and take. There has to be a dialogue. There has to be, we have to listen. Conversation, we have to listen. And so one of the things about dodgeball versus catch and what's going on right now is that there's a breakdown and we're all losing. And I would love to see us get back to a place where we're saying, hey, like I value you. We value both sides. We value the relationship far more than being right or the transaction or, you know, the victory of the day. And because of the relationship, if I value the relationship more than the transaction, in the midst of the transaction, I'm going to be motivated to preserve the relationship. Meaning, if I have an opportunity to be right or to offend you or to prove my point, but I know that that will offend you and possibly damage our relationship, and I value the relationship, I'll withhold, I'll refrain myself, I'll exercise restraint, because I don't value winning an argument over the friendship. And what is happening now is that we're valuing being winning. A lot of it is being swept up into politics. A lot of it, there's an actual debate going on. There's a competition. They're competing for an election right now. And so a lot of things are elements are being added to the conversation that don't necessarily belong. But in terms of conversation, take it outside of just the racial tensions and the things that are going on right now. But I mean, in our marriages, in our homes, in religious conversations, if we get into the habit and we develop the propensity for playing catch and being conscious of being catch communicators, meaning I am going to try to assess the individual, whoever I'm playing with, whoever my partner is in the conversation, and try to assess their, education level, the social, everything that I can, and take all that into consideration to maximize the connectivity, to maximize the experience, to get the most and give the most out of that opportunity, then that's where we're going to see growth. Dodgeball creates stagnation. Catch, it promotes progress, and that's what we're trying to do. We're saying that the actions are motivated towards progress. That's what we want. But the reality is the methods that we're using are causing further breakdown, causing further clashes in communication. And the more you continue to have breakdowns, the less you want to try, the less effort you want to put in. And so if we can just develop the mentality of saying, hey, I value the relationship more than the transaction. I don't want to just be right at the cost of offending somebody. I think it's important to hear the other side and see, like, if I need to change my opinion, or if I'm wrong. God forbid any of us admit that we're wrong. But perhaps some of our worldviews or our perspectives may be a little bit skewed based upon our experiences. And if we take time to hear somebody else's perspective, if we start to play catch and stop, we get in the habit of playing dodgeball. And every time we see a ball, we're ready to deflect it, as opposed to say, hey, if you habitually just play dodgeball all your life, Dave, and I habitually play catch, if I throw a ball at you, you're going to move. You're going to instinctively flinch and get out of the way of it. If I've been playing catch my whole life and you throw a ball at me, I'm going to most likely try to grab it. And so a lot of times in conversations and arguments, immediately, some of us are programmed to just immediately play dodgeball, immediately begin to deflect, immediately go into having a war of words, intellectual sparring sessions. And if we can develop a mindset, if I want to play catch because I want to grow, I want to connect, I want to create a lane, a path by which we can, there can be an exchange of information and we can grow and we can edify. We can stop seeing titles like, this political figure or this, great mind, or this theologian destroyed so-and-so. And perhaps, this so-and-so, this theologian took into consideration all of his strengths and weaknesses, and as opposed to trying to exploit weaknesses, he compensated for the weaknesses. And as a result, the love that he used and the patience and the compassion that he used in delivering his point of view is what planted the seed that causes somebody else's heart to change. And so I don't think that playing dodgeball is a solution. I don't think that, I think that there are valid points on both sides. If we just take time to listen, if we take time to really put our pride aside and say the objective here is to play catch. The objective here is to connect, is to understand, not necessarily reach an agreement. We can agree to disagree, but my objective, my motive should be to try to understand you and your position in your world. And I believe that that's where communication improves at.
Well, just to listen to you again and having watched your video on this, I'm still just it's such a simple and simplified analogy, but it's so accurate. And like you said, you know, if all you ever do is play dodgeball, your reaction to someone trying to play catch with you is going to be a dodgeball reaction
immediately.
And I think that, again, is just an incredible analogy, but I think it's so on point. Again, not just in political issues, not just in, you know, the issue or topic of racial equality, but between husbands and wives and kids and parents and friends and business partners. It's no one issue is greater than another. In fact, I would say the issue you're dealing with right now, you know, as each of us have a personal issue at home or at work or whatever, that's the biggest issue in your mind. And applying that type of communication to it, playing catch with somebody, I think could be just absolutely a world-changing perspective. So being that this is drive time, we always like to wrap up with a tangible takeaway. So let me ask you this. How do we switch from playing dodgeball this week and start playing catch, even if everyone around us is trying to play dodgeball?
So again, I think where the game changes is where the objective and the heart of the changes, meaning the game changes in catch when the individual makes up their mind to receive and to throw it in such a way and say, hey, I'm gonna use my skills to build. I'm not gonna try to hit this guy. I'm gonna throw it in such a way as they can receive it. And when I step onto the stage of the platform with competition or pride, or my objective is to one up or down, that's my motivation from the outset. The result is going to be dodgeball. So I believe that the number one way that we can stop playing dodgeball in our communications is to resolve in our heart and pray. You know, ask the Lord, like, look, I have a tendency a lot of times, you know, to because litigation and going through court hearings and stuff, that you find yourself playing a lot of dodgeball. And so it's a change of the heart. It's a matter of saying, like, I have to make a conscious decision to value, again, the relationship and the growth more than I do just being right in the conversation. And when we approach each scenario, each situation we run into throughout our week, throughout our day, with the mentality that I'm gonna remain humble. I'm gonna seek to understand rather than to be understood. I'm gonna seek to understand rather than necessarily reach an agreement. I'm gonna value the other person's opinion. I'm gonna take time to listen more than I talk. We've heard it said that, you know, we have two ears and one mouth. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. I think the number one thing is the way that we make the shift from playing dodgeball to playing catch is making the shift in our heart and saying, hey, I'm going to stop competing. I'm going to stop assuming that I'm right. I'm going to stop assuming that my opinion or my perspective is the most valuable or the only one out of the 7-point-something billion people on the planet. And I'm going to place myself in a position to learn. I'm going to humble myself and say, hey, talk to me. I'm listening. Let's play catch. And so it's really a shift in the heart perspective. It has to be a conscious effort to make a move from playing dodgeball to catch, especially when we're predisposed to play one or the other. So we have to consciously, you know, prayerfully, carefully, and it's you know, something that can be habituated, but it takes time to develop. And we just continue daily to strive and say, hey, and we have to catch ourselves in moments and say, you know what, I'm playing dodgeball. I'm deflecting. You know what, let me get back into a mentality of playing catch, and just continually just training ourselves. Like the word of God says that we're to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And when we get into a position where we're saying, hey, I'm going to continue to weed out the bad thoughts. I'm going to have bad days. I'm going to have the temptation to continue to play dodgeball, or, I got, you know, especially on a specific topic, it rubs me the wrong way. And we resist that urge. We walk in humility, we walk in love, and we continue to value the relationship more than the transaction. And I believe that the natural result of that is going to be playing more catch as opposed to dodgeball.
Man, that's great. Joshua, thanks for playing catch.
Thank you, Dave.
For being here today. Thanks for taking the time. And, you know, I would say to everybody watching, first off, go check out Joshua's other video. Again, we're going to put the link in the post so you guys can see it in his original context. Man, I look forward to having you on here again in the future. I just want to thank you for your time.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it. Again, I appreciate the opportunity, Dave. Love what you're doing, and look forward to being back in touch with you, man.
All right. Have a great week, guys.